West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Alexander Smirnoff has been indicted related to false statements against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, alleging that they were involved in a bribery scandal and took $5 million of payments when they weren't. You'll know a lot about Alexander Smirnoff when I'm done with this hot take. And I'm sure that James Comer, who is the MAGA head of the Oversight Committee, wishes that you didn't know anything about him, because the entire basis for the investigation against Joe Biden, the entire basis for the indictment, frankly, has been Alexander Smirnoff's statement to the FBI. And when those statements are given to the FBI, they're put on a form. That form has a number. The number is 1023. I'm going to talk a lot about Form 1023, which MAGA has waved around, and Senator Grassley of Iowa released to the public, even though the FBI said we can't trust the informant, and he eventually got indicted for lying to the FBI. This is the type of evidence that MAGA is relying upon when they say that Joe Biden is corrupt. In fact, let's talk a little bit about Alexander Smirnoff, and then I'm going to go to the actual statements made by MAGA, by James Comer last year, just to kind of frame where we're at, and again that the MAGA are relying on fake and false information and informants that are now been indicted. In fact, Alexander Smirnoff has been indicted by David Weiss. David Weiss is the special counsel appointed by Merrick Garland, who's the lead special counsel over Hunter Biden. This came up because, as an offshoot of the Hunter Biden investigation, they found a criminally lying Alexander Smirnoff. You may remember that Alexander Smirnoff is also involved with a bribery or an illegal foreign donation to Truth Social, the media company owned by Donald Trump. Another $5 million that came through Paxim Bank, as reported by a whistleblower for Truth Social, Will Wilkerson. Are you following? I'm going to tie it all together on this hot take. Let's start with Alexander Smirnoff and the false statements made by James Comer that all of MAGA is a Twitter about and has been relying on since last year. Let's roll the clip of Comer on Fox Business.
But one point that is so interesting to me, interesting quote unquote, is that Burisma wanted to come into the U.S. energy business one way or another, and this prosecutor in the Ukraine was standing in the way. So what do? They go after flat out bribery to the Bidens, who were in power at the time as vice president. I mean, to me, that rings so clearly. There's motive here, which thanks to Brooks' reporting, I hadn't heard before.
Yeah, what the motive was, Larry, was they were wanting to enter into the U.S. energy market through an IPO, and they felt like they couldn't conduct an initial public offering if they were under investigation for corruption in Ukraine. So that's what it all pertained to. That's where the supposed bribe happened. That's why it happened, because they wanted to get rid of the prosecutor and try to clear up their name and have a Biden on the board so that they could do an initial public offering to try to show credibility as they try to expand the market. They also wanted to buy an existing energy company, and I believe it was in Texas, but I don't know the name of the company. So that was their whole business model, that to get their foot in the door, buy a company and do an IPO.
Everything that James Comer just said is a lie. Everything is incorrect. Everything that the host Kudlow said is incorrect and fabricated, because everything that Alexander Smirnov, 41 years old, told the FBI, and that was reflected in the Form 1023 witness statement, is a lie, and he's now been indicted as a result. The 2-count indictment, one for false statement, which we call 18 U.S.C. United States Code 1001 charge, and a 1519 charge for fake record. The story that Alexander Smirnov told, and the heavy emphasis here is on story, fake story, is that sometime in 2020, he reported to the FBI that Burisma paid Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden was on the board of this energy company in Ukraine, but paid Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, okay, while he was either vice president or about to be president, $5 million each, $10 million to stop criminal investigations of Burisma by a Ukrainian prosecutor, which was being supported by the United States. Only problem with that timeline is wrong, because by the time the conversations were made with Smirnov with Hunter Biden, it was after Joe Biden had left the vice presidency, so he had no position of power, and it was after the special prosecutor had already been in Ukraine, had already been dismissed. So it couldn't possibly have been linked to that, and he kept changing his story in conversations with the FBI. He originally told the FBI in 2017 that Burisma was trying to have a IPO, an initial public offering, to go public, have their company go on the stock exchange, and that was in 2017. 3 years later, he completely changed the story, dumped all over the Biden family, claimed falsely that Joe Biden was involved in a bribery scandal, which MAGA ran with, including on Fox News that you just saw, and is at the heart of their impeachment investigation against Joe Biden. All of that has proven by the special counsel and by the FBI to be false. Now, Smirnov also, through another contact, another relationship of Putin, Anton Postalnikov. Anton Postalnikov is a friend of Putin and has a bank that he controls called Paxim Bank. Paxim Bank made a $5 million payment to Truth Social, Donald Trump's organization. So Smirnov is busy trying to bribe his way out of whatever situation he's in. The problem with his 1023, I'm going to move to Chuck Grassley next. Chuck Grassley, a senator on the Foreign Relations Committee, released the 1023 of the witness statement, the false witness statement of Smirnov, in order to, no pun intended, to smear Joe Biden and Hunter Biden over the objection of the FBI, because they knew it was probably false at the time. He did it anyway. Let's go to a clip of Chuck Grassley and why he released the 1023.
Senator, let me stop you there. You just said you read the document, is that right?
Yes.
And what did it say?
Well, I'm not going to characterize it. We're going to make it public when they get it delivered to us. But if he would read it, he would know that all the excuses that he's giving us, that he wants to protect sources, and that's important to protect sources, but that's not an issue with this document the way I read it, and he ought to come forth. They've got to produce this document. You know, they're up against what the Durham report has said about the shortcomings and the political bias of the FBI, and this is just one more example of them not being forthcoming to the public, because the public's business ought to be public, and there's no reason for an unclassified document to be held in secret.
Senator, how damning is this document to the sitting U.S. president?
Well, it's I don't know that, and that's what we need. But
you've read it.
I read it. Let's put it this way. There's accusations in it, but it's not for me to make a judgment about whether these accusations are accurate or not. It's up to my job to make sure the FBI is doing their job. And that's what this is all about as far as I'm concerned. Public's business ought to be public.
So you got This is this kind of this biofeedback loop, this echo chamber created by MAGA. They take a false statement that Comer repeats it on Fox News. Chuck Grassley releases the actual statement, and then has another statement about it. And then it's just this biofeedback loop of BS that to try to distort the story and lie to the American people. There's no other way to put this. So the reality is that Smirnoff was a liar. Smirnoff has been caught. He's been indicted. He's going to be extradited from Las Vegas, where he's picked up off a international flight, and he's going to be sent to the Central District of California for prosecution. But that's not going to stop MAGA, because already Comer has changed his tune, and now he says that the impeachment investigation into Biden is not based on Smirnoff's 1023 report to the FBI. It's based on other bank account information that they received later. We know from the earlier clip I showed you that that's a bald-faced lie. That is a bald-faced lie. The entire impeachment proceeding started based on lying informants like this one. Let's show a clip of Comer saying that it's no longer relying on the 1023. Let's play that clip.
Okay. Mr. Abate, I'd like to have you describe for me the process and procedure that the FBI should normally follow when receiving criminal allegations from a trusted FBI source that an office holder engaged in bribery. For example, if the allegations include reference to evidence that would prove or disprove the bribery scheme, would standard procedure, operating procedure require the FBI to seek out that evidence?
Senator, in any instance where we receive information, an allegation, or a complaint, we apply the standards on the Attorney General guidelines and our DIOG, and determine whether the information received, the allegation, the complaint, meets the threshold for the opening of an investigation. We consult appropriately with our field office, with our program management elements at headquarters, with our Office of General Counsel, and then we take it from there based on the information, whether it meets the standard.
So that's the investigation process that should have been followed with respect to the 1023. Apparently that process wasn't followed. For the sake of restoring credibility, the FBI must explain itself sooner rather than later.
So let me bring it home here in this hot take. We've got Alexander Smirnoff having been investigated by the FBI and special counsel David Weiss, special counsel for Hunter Biden, also in doing his job determined with the FBI that, and the grand jury now indicting Alexander Smirnoff for lying about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, claiming that they took $5 million apiece in bribe money from Burisma when they knew or should have known that was totally untrue. In fact, Lev Parnas, who's on the Midas Touch Network as well, and a former colleague of Rudy Giuliani who spent a little time in jail himself, he reports that he had a conversation with the CEO of Burisma, Mykola Zlakevsky, and Zlakevsky told Parnas he denied everything that Smirnoff had said. He said there was no intent by Burisma to ever bribe anybody, nor to have an initial public offering. So there's always been information hanging out there in the environment that denies what Smirnoff said. That didn't stop MAGA from using it to their advantage.
It is Monday, the 19th of February of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, River City Hash Mondays. That's right. We had an exceedingly long weekend, as you know. Had to pretty much at the last minute decide that I was not able to do a show because I got pretty ill. You might remember on Thursday I had mentioned or complained a bit about a little bit of a sore throat and scratchy nose and post-nasal drip and all that stuff. And by Friday, it really did hit me. And as we got closer to showtime, it got worse and worse. So sent a little Skype message to David as he was about to wind down his show, because that's usually about 10 minutes before the end of his show. I send him over my show notes, so he might give a rundown or mention an item or two before he signs off. But to let him know that I was not going to be able to do a show because I was too ill. And what I did on Friday was pretty much sleep. I had to, of course, rouse myself to care for my mom. Now, of course, when you're doing that when you're sick, you wear a mask, wash your hands, and, take care. But it was quite the effort to get up and get her meds and something to eat. But I did it. And then Saturday, I started feeling a little bit better and slept a bit, rested some, but I was able to get up and do a few chores. And then yesterday, I wouldn't say that I'm completely out of the woods, but yesterday I wasn't as fatigued and kind of felt I made it over the hump. And today, I still got a little bit of phlegm in the lungs and, as you can probably tell, a stuffed up nose somewhat. But I feel a lot better, and thank you for being patient with me. Normally, my attitude isn't no matter what, the show goes on. Very few times has the show not gone on because of physical ailment or disease. There's been a couple of times, like when I had my shoulder surgery, but even then, when I got back from that was an outpatient procedure too, my last shoulder surgery. And it wasn't really a minor surgery either. But nonetheless, I was able to at least put the radio station together. And was I doing shows then? I can't even remember. It was so long ago. But maybe. Yeah, that's right. When we had the other fellow that we should not mention because we had a falling out. You know what I mean. Yep. Anyway, let's see. So, yeah, there's been very few times I've gone out of town. And even then, there were times where I went ahead and took a machine so that I could broadcast the radio station and format shows and do a show from afar. And but lately, when we've done traveling, which has been very infrequent, the last time in years was when I went to visit my father here just last weekend. Not this last weekend, but the weekend before that, as you know. And that's probably why I got sick, but we'll get back to that. Even then, I was able to at least do some of the formatting from afar, but we pretty much had a robot station that went back and forth between Progressive Voices channel and our, personal time programming. So it's quite infrequent when I'm not able to do a show and can barely keep the radio station going. Because that's the other thing I was able to do was on Friday at least keep the programming intact. And it wasn't easy because I really had forced myself because it was a lazy day on Friday. And thankfully, the weekend, I was able to actually rest a little bit, just a little. So here we are, Monday. We take poor little Precious in for a checkup and get her ready for her teeth cleaning and surgery. She has a pretty bad loose tooth and it's infected. And she'll be getting some antibiotics. And then next week, on the 28th, she'll go in all day and have her mouth and teeth taken care of, and she needs it. I might have mentioned that there was a point where she was really listless, and it scared me because it kind of reminded me of when Ginger was still around and when she was getting sick. And this little girl is not that young. She's about 7 years old now, so that's not that young anymore. But she's usually a bouncy little baby. And she hadn't been bouncy when a week or so, or actually before I went to see my dad. And it concerned me, and I made those concerns known here, at least in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and the broader Netroots radio community would then know, of course. But she bounced back some, but she does still seem a little, I don't want to say listless, but she's not her real bouncy self. So I'm hoping that we can knock some of this infection down from the antibiotics and then get her teeth cleaned and the loose one taken care of, and then we'll go from there. I hope it bounces her back because she's a cute little thing. I've come to care a lot for her. Okay, so there's that. Mom is now on the fast track to get that carotid artery routed out. I'm a little bit peeved. The people who we were dealing with here, I'll just say it, Providence Hospital. We went in for her regular checkup. They're the ones that said that she had a 90% blockage in the carotid artery and that we had to move on it quick. And then we went and had another test, an echo test, and then we sat with some consultants because Mom had a heart attack when she had COVID, and there's a bit of a concern. And then when she had her hip replacement surgery, she had an infarction. Yeah. So we just wanted to make sure that her heart is strong enough to be able to go through this procedure. This procedure, fortunately, is not a big invasive one, but, there's always bleeding when you're cutting into an artery. And that changes the chemistry, and chemistry can do things to the heart. We got to be careful. So we were told this was going to be quick. And so the beginning of February came up, and we're not hearing anything. And they said to wait for their call. And I did. And I guess I'll never do that again, right? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, I finally got a hold of him, and now it's moving really quick, and I think one of the people might have made a tiny, tiny little mistake. You don't want to give people too much info. But in her apology, she said, I don't know why this fell through the cracks. So we did fall through the cracks, is what you're saying. Thank you very much. Damn it. So Mom was given some medicine, and we went through 2 refills, which was all that was allowed. And I thought, well, they gave us enough in case they had to put this surgery out towards the end period. And it turns out that maybe they could have done it before the first refill was needed. Doesn't make me feel like a competent caregiver. Thank you very much. Follow what they tell you to do. And what they tell you to do is apparently wrong. Don't wait for their call. Call them. I should have known that. I mean, I do. So, we don't want Mom to get excited and, have a stroke, because that's what will happen. We don't want that. The idea is to route that thing out, maybe get some more oxygenated blood to her brain, and it might help her confusion and her not being so confused. I like to think that. At the very least, it means she's not going to have a stroke so easily. And, there's still a bit of a worry. You don't want her, anything could happen on the table. And, so it's a bit of a worry. But we're now on the fast track. We go in for a CAT scan, which I thought we already did. That's how they found this thing. But, maybe there's some time has passed, and she's been on the medicine, and they want to see, another baseline. So we go in for a CAT scan on Wednesday, and then a follow-up the next week with the presumably the surgeon and his people, and I guess that's when they tell us, yeah, everything's really good to go, and this is the date, be here at this time, yada, yada, yada. Okay, that's the personal news. Oh, my. Why don't we go ahead, and I just looked at how much time I've been talking here. Why don't we give a rundown on what we have in store, because there's a couple of longer articles here that I would like to not abbreviate so much that as I've done in the past. So what is in store for us here in the Bistro Cafe as we begin on this fabulous River City Hash Mondays? Well, at the top, that was Medea's Touch. Those folks explaining how the dumb as rocks Republicans destroyed their own investigation. Yeah, Smirnoff. And we're not talking vodka either. Not one whit. And on the rest of the menu, video games are becoming a hotbed of dangerous propaganda. And we might have already known that too, but this gives a rundown on how. Another top Arizona Republican election official is forced to resign as threats by MAGA goons get worse and worse. And a monument at the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles honors Japanese Americans incarcerated during World War II by listing every name. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a German labor union is called on ground staff for Lufthansa to walk off the job at 7 airports tomorrow, Tuesday. And police in Moscow were called to investigate alleged LGBTQ plus propaganda at a fan event dedicated to the cartoon series My Little Pony. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Are going to forego the usuals at this usual juncture and tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy on this fine River City Hash Mondays. And it comes out of The Daily Beast by Peter Ray Allison. Ever since its inception, the video game industry has been beset by controversy. There have been grave concerns about the perils of gaming addiction and moral panics regarding violence and sexualization in games. Despite these controversies, video games have become a ubiquitous part of our culture and are played around the world. Digital tools for creating video games like Unity and Unreal Engine content have become widely available. Now, anyone with an internet connection and a laptop can create their own video game, which has led to a burgeoning indie gaming scene. However, it has also caused a more surprising side effect: political influence, disinformation, and even radicalization. Popular culture is influencing the way we see the world. Dominic Sowecki, a counselor posted by the Psychological Defense Agency at the Embassy of Sweden in Tallinn, told the Daily Beast. We're reading books or watching movies where certain countries are not existent or certain ethnicities are portrayed as good or bad. We can assume that playing video games will also influence our view of the world. Just as films can be used to promote a particular ideology, so too can video games. For example, since 2002, the U.S. Army has developed and released more than 30 games in the America's Army series. These games are notable for being the American government's first significant use of video games as a platform to promote recruitment. This tactic is also used by U.S.'s adversaries. For example, the video games Special Force and Holy Defense were developed by the Hezbollah Central Internet Bureau. Mahmoud Raya, an official for the Bureau, said in a statement that it was designed to counter foreign video games that portrayed Arabs as enemies. However, in the training mode of Special Force, Players also shoot posters of prominent Israeli figures such as Shaul Mofaz. Studies of radicalization tend to focus on social media. Linda Schlegel, an associate fellow at the Center for Applied Research on De-Radicalization, noted in her research paper regarding radicalization in video games that we should at least assume games aid in the process. Whether video games are a particularly potent tool for radicalization is currently an open question that is controversially debated among extremism researchers. Schlegel told the Daily Beast it is currently unknown what degree of influence video games have, as research is still ongoing. Disinformation within video games can be utilized for a variety of reasons, from recruitment or influencing elections to war propaganda and inciting violence. Studies have shown that video games are an essential part of right-wing extremist culture. Video games have been incorporated into extremist propaganda, often as a source for memes. The possibilities for influence or disinformation are more prominent in open multiplayer games such as Minecraft and Roblox, which encourage player engagement and player-generated content. These are virtual sandbox games where the game is the platform from which players are able to create their own content. While the majority of this content is relatively benign, has also led to instances of Russian propaganda in these games. For example, a Minecraft concert celebrating Russia Day was streamed by a Russian official. Maya Bodie of Alternet brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Maricopa County Supervisor Clint Hickman, a Republican, announced earlier last week that he will not be returning to the job for the 2024 election due to years of threats that he faced at work and the punishing environment he's endured since 2020, according to The Guardian. Hickman voted to confirm Arizona's largest county's 2020 election results, according to the report, despite an aggressive campaign from ex-President Donald Trump and GOP allies. After the election in 2020, it's gotten worse and worse, he said. I started to feel like all I get to do is play defense in this job anymore. I thought I was looking way too much in the rearview mirror. Hickman emphasized, I can certainly play the blame game all day long, but we need some solutions, and I don't know what those solutions are at this short moment. How about this? Maybe everybody needs to start watching Mr. Rogers again and start treating people nicer. Well, you know, not having your life threatened would be a nice start. The Guardian notes Maricopa County became a national flashpoint in 2020. Then again in 2022, errors like printing problems or the use of certain pens became the subject of endless speculation and conspiracies that still linger today. And 2024 will undoubtedly bring more, as the county is a critical piece of a swing state, one that both Trump and Biden will want to win to complete their electoral map. The news outlet also notes Hickman is one of the few officials who have seen the person who threatened them get prosecuted. Mark Reese of Iowa was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison over threats he made to Hickman and to the state's attorney general. In the voicemail Reese left for Hickman in September of 2021, He said he was going to lynch the supervisor. "You're going to die, you piece of shit. We're going to hang you. We're going to hang you." Oh, how nice. Yeah, maybe they should watch Mr. Rogers. Akira Olivia Kumamoto brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Samantha Sumiko Pinedo and her grandparents file into a dimly lit enclosure at the Japanese American National Museum and approach a massive book splayed open to reveal columns of names. Pinedo is hoping the list includes her great-grandparents who were detained in Japanese-American incarceration camps during World War II. For a lot of people, it feels so long ago because it was World War II, but I grew up with my great-grandpa, who was in the internment camps, Pinedo says. A docent at the museum in Los Angeles gently flips to the middle of the book called the Reicho, and locates Kaneo Sakatani near the center of a page. This was Pinedo's great-grandfather, and his family can now honor him. On February 19th, 1942, following the attack by Imperial Japan on Pearl Harbor and the United States entry into World War II, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, authorizing the incarceration of people of Japanese ancestry who were considered potentially dangerous. From the extreme heat of the Gila River Center in Arizona to the biting winters of Heart Mountain in Wyoming, Japanese Americans were forced into hastily built barracks with no insulation or privacy and surrounded by barbed wire. They shared bathrooms and mess halls, and families of up to 8 were squeezed into 20 by 25-foot square rooms. Armed U.S. soldiers and guard towers ensured nobody tried to flee. Approximately 2/3 of the detainees were American citizens. When the 75 holding facilities on U.S. soil closed in 1946, the government published final accountability rosters listing the name, sex, date of birth, and marital status of the Japanese Americans held at the 10 largest facilities. There was no clear consensus of who or how many had been detained nationwide. Duncan Ryokan Williams, the director of the Shinso Ito Center for Japanese Religions and Culture at the University of Southern California, knew those rosters were incomplete and riddled with errors, so he and a team of researchers took on the mammoth task of identifying all the detainees and honoring them with a 3-part monument called Ire, National Monument for the World War II Japanese American incarceration. We wanted to repair that moment in American history by thinking of the fact that this is a group of people, Japanese Americans, that was targeted by the government. As long as you have one drop of Japanese blood in you, the government told you you did not belong. Well, this is a fine monument, and I'm glad it's there. And I will be going to the Japanese American Museum in Los Angeles to search for my stepfather's name, who fought with the 442nd with quite amount of distinction. And his elderly dad died in the the camps while he was fighting for America against fascism in Italy. All right, let us get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Sewing Will Never Be the Same. In her directorial debut, Zelda Williams, daughter of Robin, has come up with a cute genre bender called Lisa Frankenstein. Our protagonist here is the weird girl at school, Lisa Swallows, a survivor of abuse and trauma who spends way too much time at a local bachelor's cemetery. I didn't really know there were such things, but as she's leaving the place one day, a lightning strike resurrects one of the residents, and havoc ensues within Lisa's family and high school cohort. The reanimated being, known throughout as just the Creature, responds well to a regimen of sewn-on body parts acquired under some really interesting circumstances, as well as time in a malfunctioning tanning bed. Yes, it's the 1980s. The best parts of this one are the set design and the period soundtrack. It's obvious that Isabel Summers from Florence and the Machine, credited with the music here, knows the era well enough to place the coolest indie rock of the period and the most egregious corporate schlock rock for maximum and often hilarious effect. And Diablo Cody Scrimp does a good job of keeping the absurdity of the whole thing moving along. The theater I watched the film in preceded it with a mini-doc about the Frankenstein franchise. Obviously, this one largely owes itself to that, especially turning the tables on Bride of Frankenstein. But it's also a horror spoof, a survivor story, and a campy high school comedy, and some critics like to hone in on movies like this as not really succeeding in any one genre. But you're probably not a critic, and the huge difference between critics and audience numbers on a certain review aggregator predict that you'll probably love Lisa Frankenstein. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For older adults, optimal aging includes preventing injuries, effectively managing existing chronic conditions, and maintaining physical and cognitive health and social engagement. I'm Dr. Linda Anderson, Director of CDC's Healthy Aging Program. The promotion of cognitive health is a critical component of overall good health. Cognitive health among older adults is not just the absence of disease. It's the development and preservation of cognitive abilities such as memory, language, judgment, and remembered skills such as driving. Cognitive abilities enable individuals to maintain social connectedness, an ongoing sense of purpose, and the ability to function independently. In 2013, CDC and the Alzheimer's Association released the second in a series of roadmaps. This roadmap, the Public Health Roadmap for State and National Partnerships 2013 to 2018, was developed as part of CDC's Healthy Brain Initiative. It reflects the insights and expertise of a wide range of stakeholders at the national, state, and community levels. The roadmap shares the Healthy Brain Initiative's vision of cognitive health as a vital component of overall health and well-being, an area ripe for public health efforts. Specific actions are addressed in 4 traditional domains of public health. The first is monitor and evaluate. Tracking the health of the nation is a fundamental public health function. Actions in this area include assessments related to cognitive health that help quantify and qualify the public health impact and inform public health policies and strategies. The second domain is Educate and Empower the Nation, which focuses on actions that raise public awareness and improve access to information and resources. The third domain, Develop Policy and Mobilize Partnerships, includes actions aimed at ensuring that cognitive health is integrated into a broad spectrum of public health work. The fourth area, Assure a Competent Workforce, focuses on preparing public health professionals to translate current and emerging findings on cognitive health into effective public health practice. This roadmap provides a solid foundation for the public health community to anticipate and respond as new scientific discoveries related to cognitive health emerge. Public health agencies and partners are encouraged to work together on actions that best fit their mission, needs, interests, and capabilities. For more information, please visit cdc.gov/aging/healthybrain.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Miracles happen. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the ACLU's Civil Liberties Minute. Miracles Happen is the title of the first book written by disability rights advocate Brooke Ellison, who, when she was 11, was struck by a car and suffered catastrophic injuries. A quadriplegic, paralyzed from the neck down, she depended for the rest of her life on a wheelchair operated by a tongue-touch keypad and a respirator to breathe. With all that, in high school, she starred academically and was awarded a full scholarship to Harvard, where her dormitory suite was outfitted with a hospital bed and a hydraulic lift, and her mother roomed with her to make college possible. Brooke Ellison graduated Harvard, magna cum laude, with a BA in cognitive neuroscience and an honors thesis titled The Element of Hope in Resilient Adolescence. Ms. Ellison then achieved her master's in public policy from Harvard's Kennedy School and her doctorate in sociology from Stony Brook, where she became a professor of bioethics and health policy, and a prominent national spokeswoman for people with disabilities and for stem cell research. Ms. Ellison said, "I didn't want people to focus on what I had lost in my life, but rather on what I still had in my life." We celebrate the life and mourn the passing of devoted disability rights advocate Professor Brooke Ellison in early February at the age of 45. This has been a Civil Liberties Minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1997. And if you had theater tickets that evening to see Beauty and the Beast in Seattle, the show did not go on as planned. Musicians at the Fifth Avenue Theater, members of Local 76-493, had been on strike for a week. At issue was their compensation for performance. The union believed their wages were far below the industry standard for similar markets. The theater managers refused to budge. The union went out on strike, canceling 8 performances of the much-anticipated Disney Broadway musical. But this was the last night the theater stayed dark. Management brought in replacement musicians. The curtains rose with the scab musicians playing inside, while the picketers marched outside. The Musicians Union had a long history in Seattle. Local 76 was first formed in 1898. 60 years later, they joined the Black Musicians Local 493, integrating the union for the very first time. 18 members of the Local 76 participated in the Fifth Avenue Theater strike. 4 additional Disney musicians refused to play. Community solidarity for the strikers was strong. Each night, hundreds would join the picket lines. as a brass band played outside the theater. Violinist Libby Poole Presley was impressed by this show of support, saying, "I was floored. Here were hundreds of people helping us out in a stunning show of labor and community solidarity. To us striking musicians, it felt like magic to have the power of that many people behind us." The magic of solidarity helped the musicians win a contract victory and end their strike. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 44 degrees, expecting highs in the upper 50s. Rain showers early with scattered thunderstorms arriving in the early afternoon. We are currently under an active wind advisory, so we need to take care for that. Chance of rain about 80% and should bring with it a little less than a quarter inch of rain. Then showers early tonight with clouds remaining overnight, lows in the low 40s. Winds will be light and variable, expecting, maybe not quite a quarter inch of rain. Mostly cloudy skies tomorrow with a slight chance of rain showers throughout the day, highs in the upper 60s. Mostly cloudy skies tomorrow with a slight chance of rain showers throughout the day, highs in the upper 50s. Winds out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Pollen is rated as none here in our town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 27 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is low at level 2. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.64 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 96%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 55 degrees and mostly cloudy. Paris is 52 and cloudy. Rome is 62 degrees and fair. Bagram is 22 degrees and clear. Kyiv is 30 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 75 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 64 and mostly cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 65 degrees and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees with rain and a flood advisory. Chicago, Illinois is 38 degrees and fair. And New York, New York is 37 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. A labor union in Germany has called on ground staff for Lufthansa to walk off the job at 7 airports tomorrow, Tuesday, following a similar strike earlier this month. The Verdi union said yesterday, Sunday, that the one-day strike will affect the airports in Frankfurt and Munich, Lufthansa's two main hubs, as well as Berlin, Dusseldorf, Hamburg, Cologne, Bonn, and Stuttgart. It will run from 4 a.m. Tuesday to 7:10 a.m. Wednesday. A 27-hour strike at 5 of the same airports that started February 7th prompted the airline to cancel hundreds of flights. The union is seeking pay raises of 12.5%, or at least €500, the equivalent of $539 U.S., that would be more per month. And they've been in negotiations for about 25,000 employees, including check-in, aircraft handling, maintenance, and freight staff. Several hour or one-day warning strikes are a common tactic in German contract negotiations. A round of talks on February 12th produced no agreement. More negotiations are scheduled for Wednesday.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Even more staff at the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Police in Moscow were called to investigate alleged LGBTQ plus propaganda at a fan event dedicated to the cartoon series My Little Pony. Oh, was it the rainbow? The Mi Amore convention was closed by organizers early on Saturday after officers arrived at the venue in the Russian capital, despite police being unable to find evidence of illegal activity. The police received a complaint claiming our event promoted non-traditional relationships and related symbols, adult content for minors, and general horror and darkness. Coming to an America near you, I think. And event organizers wrote on the social media site VK on Sunday, 2 police checks did not uphold the complaints. The police initially asked them to shutter the event a few hours earlier than originally planned, but that organizers decided to close the convention earlier still after hearing unconfirmed reports of more officers heading toward the venue. Both organizers and volunteers were able to leave without incident, they said. The convention, which features an animated horse with a mane styled in the colors of the Russian flag as its logo, catered to My Little Pony's subset of adult fans and planned to feature live music performances, as well as stalls selling merchandise. Although aimed at children and focused on the magical power of friendship, My Little Pony has previously prompted anxiety in Russia, with some fearing that the show could run afoul of the country's anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. Oh, friendship is gay? Russian movie database Kinopoisk changed its rating for the animated series to an adult-only 18+ in December of 2023. Local news outlets reported not long after a Russian court declared the global LGBTQ+ movement to be an extremist organization. Although no reason was given for the change, viewers speculated that the decision could be linked to the character Rainbow Dash, whose multicolored mane and tail are similar to the pride flag. The show also released an episode that featured a same-sex couple in 2019. Oh, horrors! The Supreme Court banned what the government called the LGBTQ+ movement in Russia in November of 23, labeling it an extremist organization. Russian laws prohibit public displays of symbols of extremist organizations, and at least 3 people who displayed rainbow-colored items have received jail time or fines since the ruling. Well, like I said, coming to an America near you if we're not careful. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Appétit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.